Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the Chris McDonald Podcast. Great to have you here with us tonight. Have a special guest with us all the way from Connecticut and points all around the New York area. I'm going to have a friend of the show, Mr. Tom Moore, with us tonight. But just wanted to remind you guys, we are on a YouTube channel, so be sure that you go on there and check us out if you've missed any of our programs that we've had so far this year. We've got 6 of them that are up there. This will be number 7 when we post it later on tonight. You can get it on the YouTube channel. It's at the Christopher McDonald Show Podcast. And that's on the YouTube channel. And I'm also on Facebook at Chris McDonald Podcast as well. And we're in the process of working on RSM feeds and actually getting on Apple. So those will be out here in the next few weeks. So anyway, happy to have you guys with us, Tom. We are happy to have you with us tonight.
Well, thank you for having me. It's wonderful to be here.
Absolutely. Tom is a very good friend of the show. I get to see him a couple of times a week over at the club at Legacy. And Tom's been around education and sports and whatnot up in the Northeast for a long time, and I've been meaning to talk to him about a lot of different things. And he's got some pretty good stories about some of the classic coaches that are up that way. So, Tom, in general, give us a little bit of your history, and I'll pick and choose us a question out from in there if you like.
Sure, I'd love to. Well, listen, I was born and raised in beautiful New Haven, Connecticut, right, home of Yale University. So I got my. I see you wearing a Cornell shirt, but that's okay, right? And I did not go to Yale. So, however, right, I did get to explore Yale at a young age, all the different facilities from downtown to their dorms to the Yale Bowl and Yale Field and everything that goes along with it. A lot of history there, let me tell you, right? And I was an usher at the Yale Bowl for not only the Yale Bulldogs, but also for the New York Football Giants, who decided that they were going to play 2 seasons at the Yale Bowl prior to the building of Giant Stadium. So in 73 and 74, the Giants played their home games at Yale Bowl. In 1975, they actually played at Shea Stadium, right? A lot of people remember that. And then in 1976, the inaugural year of Giant Stadium. So I'm a proud graduate of Southern Connecticut State. Well, at that time it was college. Now it's university, as well as Central Connecticut State University for graduate work, and the University of Connecticut, home of the #1 ranked and defending champion UConn Huskies. So just had to poke that in there a little bit.
Of course.
Well, again, I hear about all these vaunted programs as I've retired and moved down south here for the last 2 years, about Duke and North Carolina, as well as, everybody in the ACC. But, when you look it up, right, since 1999, I don't know if anybody has more national championships than the University of Connecticut, but I digress. Right. So anyway, I was a teacher and coach in my younger years. And then, and nobody can say anything to me about this, I was a high school principal for 30 years at two different schools, at Granby Memorial High School in Granby, Connecticut, and Wethersfield High School, home of the Eagles in Wethersfield, which is the town just south of Hartford. So just a thumbnail sketch there, right? And again, I enjoy talking to you about sports and golf and, all the crazy things that are happening in the world also.
Yes, absolutely. I wear the Cornell because I was going through, I tend to collect sweatshirts and have for years. And the reason, a matter of fact, I have 2 Cornell sweatshirts, and the purpose behind that is back when I was in graduate school, I had submitted my first paper to 5 different conferences. And one of the conferences, the first one to accept one, was the Cornell one. And then I also had one accepted, which actually went out to Loyola Marymount in Los Angeles and presented out there. And I do regret this day of not going to Cornell, but So I've really always liked Cornell for that particular reason, because they gave me the first shot at it. And secondly, one of the members over at Seven Lakes, Dave Noble, his sister is a retired professor from Cornell. So he and I have conspired on a couple of sweatshirts and whatnot. But I am a Yale man. I really have, always have been. I had the pleasure one time of meeting Tom Wolfe, the writer. We have Bonfire of the Vanities, The Right Stuff, etc. And Wolfe was telling the story, about that he got his doctorate degree in American Studies from Yale. So Yale has always really interested me. I don't know why that is, but it just always has. And so if I do progress down the road one of these days and decide, oh, what the heck, I need to be Dr. McDonald, that's where I'll certainly
There you go. There you go.
and get
Right.
it from. It's fascinating, the history of the Yale Bowl, especially with the Giants playing there for as they did. But let's back up a little bit. A lot of people today don't realize just the how marvelous and amazing that that football was up in the Northeast during that particular time, and hey, what a powerhouse the Ivy League was.
Absolutely, right. Albie Booth, and I mean, we could just go through all the various Yale legends, but Yale Bowl itself is kind of interesting because as you walk into, and you have to go through these long portals, right? It is actually dug into the ground, right? And the seating, which is about 80,000, is a saucer-like circumstance around it, and it had all sorts of events. Various I saw all sorts of concerts right there as I was vending. Quite honestly, I worked for a friend's father, hawking, whether it was drinks or souvenirs or anything like that. But one question I had for you: are you a Doonesbury fan at all?
Oh yeah, Gary Trudeau, absolutely, yes.
Okay,
yes.
So Gary Trudeau, his character BD, right? That's actually the initials of one Brian Dowling, right? Who was the quarterback at Yale, right? And they were very, very good in the late 60s. It was Brian Dowling, and Calvin Hill would be a name that you would probably recognize, whose son Grant Hill.
Right, went to Duke. Yep.
Down here and so forth, right? But BD, is the is a character from.
Oh, that's right. He does. He wears the football helmet all the time. That's right. I forgot about that. Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
And it was the famous thing in 1968. Yale was undefeated, right? And they played Harvard, and they blew a 16-point lead, at the end of the game, and the headline was Yale Harvard beats Yale 29-29.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So it was a tie. It was it was a defeat for the Yaleys, right?
But yeah, that's like
all sorts of history and legacy and just everything is there.
Yeah, that's like the 10-10 tie with Michigan State and Notre Dame back in 73, I think. It's 73 or 74.
A little bit before that, if I'm not mistaken, right? Because who the big star for Michigan State was at that time was Bubba Smith.
That's right. That's right. So it was. So it would have to be closer toward late along in there.
Something like that.
Yeah, that's right. Because I think if I remember, Era Parsegian was the coach at the time.
Era Parsegian was definitely the coach. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
I went to a Notre Dame high school in West Haven, Connecticut, and so we were obligated to learn all sorts of Notre Dame folklore.
The University of American Football in America. Yeah, that's what Tony Kornheiser always called it. But it's just a fascinating the whole area up there with the schools, the Harvard, the Yales, all that. Just the history of it has always been fascinating to me. And I would imagine that you've seen some pretty good Harvard Yale games there as well.
Oh, it's amazing what the games that we saw there. One of the fun things after every Yale game is that the kids will run out onto the field. And back during the 60s, when I was a kid and run out onto the field, we'd always ask everybody for their chin straps, right?
Oh,
So that's
okay.
a big deal, right? So the most famous chin strap that I was able to get was not from a Yale player, but actually was from a Cornell player
Oh, wow.
by the name of Ed Marinero,
That
right?
name, yes. And he wound up being on Hill Street Blues.
Exactly,
Yes.
exactly. Yeah, so he became but he was a great player,
Yeah.
right? He was absolutely a great player. But yeah, Yale Harvard is the big rivalry. It's known as the game, and
Right.
right. Even though there are many other the games, I know Cal Stanford is the
Right.
game, and no better game. And I watch this every year faithfully is Ohio State Michigan,
Oh, yes.
right? Oh,
Without a doubt.
I love that game. It's one of my favorites, right?
Yeah,
But
absolutely.
Harvard does pretty well.
Yeah, I just and it's just again, it's the history of all of it. I mean, even I'm sure there's been some rousing Dartmouth Cornell games before, or Columbia and Princeton games and whatnot. So I mean, I'm sure there's been a lot. I was amazed to find, and even though these are not Ivy League, but the Lafayette LaSalle game. That's the no.
Lehigh.
Lehigh, yes, Lafayette Lehigh, yes. That's the oldest, that's the oldest continuous football rivalry in college football. And a lot of people don't realize that. And I didn't until probably 3 or 4 years ago.
Hey, one other little thing about Yale Bowl. Yale Bowl is located on Route 34, which is Derby Avenue in Connecticut, along with
Mhm.
Central Avenue. And I actually lived on Central Avenue for a brief time in my life. But right from Yale Bowl, right, you can go through a tunnel underground under Derby Avenue, and you end up at Yale Field, right, home of the baseball team, which has its own amazing history also. And again, we used to sneak into Yale Bowl and play. We'd have our Sunday morning football league at Yale Bowl, and we would play
Right.
at Yale Field and so forth, right? And one of the things that happened, it has in center field a huge wall, right?
Mhm.
I mean, with the scoreboard and so on and so forth, right? And legend has it that the only person to hit the ball over that is Babe Ruth on one of the barnstorming
Oh,
tours,
wow.
right?
Wow.
But I actually saw somebody else hit it. He was actually a high school teammate of mine, but he went on to play for the University of New Haven, right?
Right.
And there would be something called a city series. It would be
Mhm.
Yale, Quinnipiac, Southern Connecticut, where I went, right,
Right.
in University of New Haven. And this gentleman, he was an amazing high school and college player, Bob Tertio. He
Mhm.
hit one over there too, left-handed. So
Oh,
I wonder if
wow.
it's only left-handed that you can
It must be
get
a
hit it over.
short porch down the left-hand side.
Yeah.
Uh, the I would know that there exists a picture of George Bush #1, George Bush the first, 41, of
Yeah.
him
It's
standing there with his hand shaking hands with Babe Ruth toward Ruth's earlier days.
He played first base at Yale.
Yeah, and he was left-handed, so that makes
Yeah.
makes absolutely perfect sense. Talk about a few of the Giants games you saw at the Yale Bowl. How who
Oh,
did you see play? How was that?
so in 2 years, the Giants won one game. It was not a stellar part of their history. Let's put it that way.
Right.
What impressed me and I was a kid, right? I think I was 15 years old, and I'm an usher and so forth, was just how crazy the fans were. They were just, I mean, lighting pennants on fire and running up and down the stairs and just,
Yeah.
just everything. It was amazing. Um, I saw the Cowboys had Roger Staubach, right?
Hmm.
At the time, they were just, they were the, epitome of perfection, America's team and so forth. The
Right.
Giants had the former Cowboys quarterback, Craig Morton, right,
Hmm.
who did not fare as well. Um, they played in a snowstorm, losing 31-7 to Fran Tarkington and the
Yeah.
Minnesota Vikings. Right,
Yeah.
the Giants had a quarterback that day, number 16, Norm Snead, who recently passed away. Norm Snead played for a bunch of different teams. I think he
Right.
played for. I know he played for the Eagles, and I'm pretty sure he played for the Vikings and so forth. Right, but my favorite player though during those times were John Mendenhall, who was an interior defensive tackle, and I'm pretty sure that he was playing at that time Brad Van Pelt, right? Who was part of the legacy of linebackers, Brad Van Pelt, and then Harry Carson, and then Lawrence
Right.
Taylor, and those are some pretty good linebackers back then. But it was
You're welcome for Lawrence Taylor, by the way. He came from Carolina.
he's the best defensive player ever.
That,
right?
bar none.
Right.
I mean, I like Ray Lewis, but I'm sorry. But yes, he is the epitome of the defensive player.
Yeah, I would put Ray Lewis up there, but again, this guy's on his own mantle.
He is.
Right? Who else is probably knocking on the door there is Reggie White.
Oh,
right?
without a doubt.
Yeah, I mean, he's just amazing, and and I know the guys that are playing today are really good, but right? Those guys were. I mean, he was fast. He was crazy. He was, tough. I remember watching him play a game against the Saints, right, with like a separated shoulder, and they put the harness on him and strapped him in. He's like taking people down with one hand and so forth. He was amazing. So thank you. Right,
Yeah.
I appreciate.
You're welcome. He said,
he was number 2 draft pick that year.
Oh,
right?
wow.
Do you have any idea who the number 1 draft pick was? Right.
That was 80, wasn't it?
What?
That was 1980 or 79?
81.
81.
Or 80 or 81, I forget. Yeah.
I can't remember, but I know you're going to tell me.
The running back from South Carolina by the name of
George Rogers. George Rogers, who won the Heisman Trophy.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
How about that?
Thank God they didn't take LT. Right.
Woo, absolutely. Well, it's that's one thing. Yeah, like you said, he is he was remarkable. And he had some issues down the road. And I mean, and all of our heroes, feet of clay. You can.
I think he had them back when he was playing too.
Yeah, right, exactly. And one thing that but what he did though, when he showed up to play. It didn't matter what. But the one thing about him, they just did this thing last year, a couple of years ago, when John Madden passed away. And he says, I do not do this. I don't go and do interviews. I don't do anything. But when they called me and asked me to do this John Madden thing, I said, "Where's the camera? Let's do it right now." And I think that shows a lot for Madden, but that also shows a lot for him, for LT, because it shows his love and his passion for the game, and just and he never looked at it more than a game. He looked at it seriously as a game. Certainly, I mean, I do remember him. They have him. I believe it's at the Super Bowl against Denver, where he's sitting there. He's saying, "Let's go out there like a pack of wild dogs and have some fun." That's the idea, and that's how he played. He played with that love. Him and Carson and all that whole linebacking core.
Well, what's interesting is, and I think it was last year, they were interviewing Bill Belichick, right? And somebody said, and I think it was Micah Parsons. It was Micah Parsons in, one of the, best players, or might have been Aaron Donald, or just somebody really good. And Belichick just stood back and he said, "Listen," he said, "you could talk about all these players are great players, but there was nobody in the league of Lawrence Taylor." Right. So I thought that was telling also. And also, I'm just thinking about Belichick and his future and everything. He had obviously one of the greatest coaches ever, right? But I have to think that his greatest coaching performance was in the 1990 Super Bowl, stopping Jim Kelly and Thurman Thomas of the Buffalo Bills, and coming up with defense that they had beaten the Raiders to get in the Super Bowl. They beat them 51-3. I mean, there was no that was stopping
right.
them, right? And Belichick, put together a defense that they bought into, and they had Pepper Johnson and Carl Banks and Lawrence
Yeah.
Taylor, and I just think that was one of his greatest coaching performances ever. And he's had a lot of them.
You're exactly right, and it's amazing. Belichick is, I mean, he's a phenomenal coach. I mean, we've been very fortunate, in the last 20, 30 years to see, I mean, even say 40 years. Even I'm forgetting that the 80s were 40 years ago. My God, but we've seen Bill Walsh, we've seen Belichick, we've seen all of these incredible. I mean, Jimmy Johnson. I mean, Jimmy Johnson was a fantastic.
Give him his due.
Yeah, I mean, Tom Coughlin. I mean, he's 1-2, and I mean
don't forget Parcells.
Yeah, exactly. What I was going to say is that we had a saying in the Coast Guard: we do more with less. Gosh knows, Tom Coughlin did more with less twice, and then goes and beats an 18-0 football team or 19-0 football team. And takes them out. Thank you, David Tyree. But it's just amazing that we've seen such amazing coaches and how they've developed. We've been very, very fortunate. I mean, I'm not saying that Madden or Bud Grant or Marv Levy or any of those guys along the way there, but weren't great. But I mean, it's just the ones that we're all familiar with today, especially with my age. I'm just a couple of years younger than you, so we've been fortunate to see what we've have.
Yeah, and then you got to look at guys like Andy Reid and
that was what I was getting ready to say.
And so forth. These guys are phenomenal, right? They're brilliant. They're absolutely brilliant at what they do.
Right. But beyond a doubt. Beyond a doubt.
They are brilliant.
One of the things that's been very controversial over the last couple of weeks, past couple of years, and this has certainly happened since COVID, is the NIL deal. I really am having heartburn with it. And it feels like, everything is now turned into AAA baseball. I mean, that's basically it. I mean, that's the best way I can say it. I mean, they're getting paid to play. Name, image, and likeness. I mean, my girl Olivia Dunn down at LSU. I mean, gosh knows. I mean, who would have ever thought that gymnastics would be such a mainstream sport now? Who would have thought that, it'd only been, the big four: basketball, baseball, et cetera. But now, we look at these things and I can see why the lower, if you will, low ticket items, your tennis, your golf, your gymnastics, whatever, why that would certainly benefit from this. But it's turned into like monopolies and such out in the big world with the footballs, the basketballs, the baseballs, and whatnot.
I am not a fan of the NCAA, right? I think that they're one of the more mercenary groups that has ever dotted the earth, right? I mean, I do not think that they have the kids' best interests at heart. I think really they're just a money-making machine and so forth. Now, having said that, I think that they've really messed this whole NIL thing up significantly, right? So I'm in agreement with you. I think that, again, had I been in charge, right, we would have done things differently, right? Certainly, I think the players need to participate in the profit sharing of all these universities, but not in the manner that they're doing it now.
Right.
Again, I mean, you have to have a formula that goes together that allows for some fairness and equity, right, amongst all these different groups. I don't think that they've done very, very, very well. I'm interested to see what's going to happen next year with the college football playoff expanding.
Yes, exactly.
Right, and I'm interested to see how this NIL thing kind of pans out, right? Because I don't think it can continue, right, in the manner that it is. I mean, when Deion Sanders' son is getting upset at the University of Colorado because they towed his Rolls Royce out of the student parking lot. I mean, there's something to be said there, right?
Right.
With that, again, and I don't begrudge anybody, getting some of that money, but I mean, some of these players are making literally millions and millions
Yes.
of dollars in college. Look at Caitlin Clark, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Again, right? Smart girl, right? Should she go to the WNBA? Well, she'd be a star, right?
Yeah.
Without question. Maybe the best player. Who knows? However, she knows that by staying at the University of Iowa, she is going to make much greater money, right,
Right.
than if she ever went to the WNBA. So, it's little bit of a conundrum there, right? What's going to happen?
It really is. And you want, you just, where does it end? I mean, I've
Right.
brought this up to you before, and and anyone who will listen to me here on these things every week. But it's there's a book, Bonfire of the Vanities. No, I'm sorry, no. Barbarians at the Gate. Barbarians at the Gate. I'm sorry, Barbarians at the Gate. And it's a
No,
story
wasn't the movie Bonfire of the Vanities?
now
Didn't
that
they make
was
out of it?
Yeah, that was now the Bonfire of the Vanities. That was Tom Wolfe, but this is Barbarians at the Gate, and what this is, this story was about the takedown of Nabisco and R.J.R. Reynolds,
Oh, okay.
and it was and there was a movie called Barbarians at the Gate. Jim Garner was in it, and at the last part of it, and of course this is in the book as well. It's a little dramatized, but it came up to the end, and they were trying to keep the company together and whatnot. And at the end, they said, all right, well, I can get us 103 a share. And the guys look at him and said, and they turned him down. And he said, why? I outbid the guys that were doing this. He said, no, it's just too much. It's just absolutely too much. What is our definition of too much? Where is the level? Where does it stop? I mean, when you start dealing with somebody that has that much money, that's already gotten theirs, so to speak. I'm now again. Sanders' kids came in with money. I mean, of course, Dion made a bundle while he was.
Yeah.
But the kids come in, and how are you as a coach going to be able to tell that kid, hey, listen, I'm gonna cut your playing time if you don't act like you got a brain in your head and follow the rules and do this, that, and the other. How are you going to be able to do anything to coach the kid, to do anything of the sort like that? When the kid can look at you, well, the heck with you, I got $4 million in the bank. I don't have to listen to you.
Yeah.
I mean, that's basically, I think that's where it's headed.
Well, and then also the tenuous nature of coaching positions, not only in professional sports, but in college sports. I mean, it's a coach think, and again, I coached high school basketball, and I was an assistant coach at Trinity College in Hartford, Connecticut, with men's basketball, right? And it becomes, wins and losses are a big deal, right? So what is the balance, right, between saying, all right, I got this guy, yeah, he's being kind of a jerk and so on and so forth, but he's going to get me my W's, right, so that I can continue coaching and so forth. I mean, it's a difficult problem.
How much are we willing to sell our soul to the devil?
Well, again, for the entertainment of college and professional sports, and again, people forget, right, in their again, fan and fanatic stages, right, that it is still just entertainment. It's sports. It's a game. It's not life or death, right? I get very concerned with the people who get all whipped up and they get into fights and even worse, right? Because of teams, and again, there's got to be some context and perspective here, but again, that goes out the window.
No, you're exactly right. I mean, there is, and that's again where, I mean, that's where we have to have families and parents and and folks, an inner circle of the kids. It's still the same thing. We still have to teach and train the kids. I mean, they're coming out, and how are they going to be led is going to be depending on how we lead them. What are they going to learn at home? And if they're not if they're not getting that at home, or if they're being led by the dollar sign, it's just it's a travesty in its own right.
Well, it's a
Absolutely.
little difficult. Their reality base is not always there.
Correct.
One one time I was again the principal at Granby Memorial High School. Who by the way, you know who Rebecca Lobo was, right?
Oh yes, I know Rebecca Lobo. Yep.
Right. So Rebecca's parents were teachers, right, in Granby, right? Denny was a track coach, history teacher, great guy, right? And Ruth Ann, God rest her soul, was a guidance counselor at the middle school, right? And you
Right.
got to picture this. So this is 1995 when
Mm-hmm.
UConn went to the Final Four for the
Mm-hmm.
first time ever. And so Denny and Ruth Ann come into my office, and again, I'm a snot nosed, wet behind the ears, right, principal and so forth. And they said, "Hey Tom, we're looking to take some personal days off, right? And I know it goes a little bit beyond the contract, the number of days, right? Because we want to go to Minneapolis and watch Rebecca in the Final Four, right?" And so in my head, I thought to myself, right now, can you imagine if I had said no? Right? No, it's not part of the contract and so forth. Can you see CBS panning over to these
Oh
two empty
my
seats and
gracious.
saying, "Well, Rebecca's parents would have been here, except right, some idiot principal wouldn't let." I was like, "Of course you're going, right? Get me a T-shirt or something, right?"
Oh, that's fantastic.
It is absolutely funny. But what I was going to say very very quickly is that we had to hire a new athletic director, and so we had a little bit of a community meeting, right,
Mm-hmm.
about that. And again, as a former player and coach, right, I said I want our athletic director to, have the best interests of the kids
Right.
at heart, right? I want athletics to, play a major portion in their social and emotional development.
Right.
And, I said, I also want the kids to be realistic, right? Because, how many of our students are actually going to play professional sports?
Right.
Well, you would have thought that I had like, smacked each one of them in the nose, right? What do
Right.
you mean about that? My kid has all sorts of I said, listen, if we can get the kids to maybe get some athletic scholarships or, maybe a little, get into a school that they might not have gotten into because of their athletic prowess and so forth. I said that's good. I said, do you know what percentage of high school athletes actually play professional sports? I mean, it's
Right.
minuscule, right? But parents don't have that perspective, Chris. I'm telling you,
I know.
right?
I know.
Yeah, which is unfortunate,
It
So
is.
I was again the principal in Wethersfield, and we had a bunch of kids go play baseball. We had one student who made it to the NFL. He played
Oh wow.
quarterback at the University of Florida for a year, right? And he's just an absolute great kid.
Yeah.
One kid. I
Yeah.
mean, come on, right? The odds are not there. Let's put it this way.
No, they're
Right?
not. They're not.
Tyler was a great player, but he was just one in a million.
That's right. He's one in 52 on a team, and whatever 52 times 30, what 1,500 or whatever.
Yeah.
That's it. I mean, it's amazing that people want to take that shot. But well, Tom, we're out of time, and I hate that we've run out. But we would like to have you come back.
Of
Definitely
course.
just before things get kicked off during March Madness, and we'll do a complete March Madness show. And I think that would
Oh,
be
is it gonna be picks?
uh,
Are there picks gonna be involved?
oh, I believe we can possibly
Yeah.
muster up a pick or two. I have no doubt in that. I'm always willing to put my Tar Heels where my mouth is, without a doubt.
Oh, it's all good. It's all
Beyond a
good.
doubt.
Right. Well,
All right,
thank you
Tom.
for having me.
Listen. Well, thank you. I thank you for coming. And folks, Tom, stick with me. We'll chat in a minute when we get done here. Guys,
Yep.
listen. Thank you for tuning in tonight. Again, thank you, Tom, for joining us. He'll be back with us again. I know we promised the Berry Patch folks today, but they had some meetings they had to go to. So we'll get them recorded and get them up for next week as well. So again, thank you for watching us. Please do watch us on the YouTube. It's at Christopher McDonald Show Podcast. That's on YouTube. Or go to Facebook to the Chris McDonald Show, and you can find me there. So until next week, you have a great night.